So there's a very conflicting, people have conflicting feelings about how to even take the death of Robert Mugabe. Like, I have obviously my own opinions, and I've spoken to a couple of people who have their own opinions as well. But we can probably all kind of agree that at the introduction of, somebody who obviously, at some point we want to thank for, being a friend of his for the last 30 years of his life or whatever. But people kind of have this understanding that when Grace happened, things started going downhill. And people want to think that, he became more of a toxic person, and that's when they want to sort of zoom in on his mistakes. And if you look at when, for me, I think it was after the 2008 election that whether he won or lost to Morgan Tsvangirai, after that things just started going downhill for him. Now, I don't think a nation is run by one person. Not that I'm taking away responsibility from the leader, but he would have had a lot of people who contributed to some of the decisions that he made. And some of the people who contributed to these decisions are president and vice president today. So, I mean, who are we really to now sort of, I've seen some people who've made his death their own story. Like, somebody was like, oh, Mugabe did this to me. And I know he's upset a lot of people, and, a lot of people went into exile. A lot of people went, into diaspora because of the situation that turned out in Zimbabwe. But we also can't get away from the fact that things like sanctions that were then imposed on Zimbabwe because of the stand he decided to have against Britain sort of put us in a worse off position. So, like, if we want to think about Mugabe, we also want to think about why the British loathe him so much. Yet in the beginning, they were like, Bandene Burugwa, that's what we'll say in my country. So there's so much to look at. I know right now feelings are all over the place, but there's so much to consider, and there's so much to look at. And, I was talking to one of my directors today, and one of his concerns was, how could he die in the heart of xenophobia? We needed them to deal with xenophobia. And I kind of get it, because Robert Mugabe dying, literally the world stood still. I knew the world was going to stand still. I knew that Mugabe didn't end at Asante Sana. So, are you ready for me? Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Makosi Today. Have you liked, subscribed, or ever shared any of our videos? Munch this episode, actually. Munch a picture, put it on your Insta stories, tag me so that I know that you're watching. So Friday the 6th of September 2019 was a very dark day for Africa. It was a very dark day for Zimbabwe in particular. The very first Prime Minister of Zimbabwe, Robert Gabriel Mugabe, gave up the ghost at 95. No matter what we want to call it, or no matter what you want to call him, he was a brilliant and courageous revolutionary. I think he was a freedom fighter amongst the likes of Joshua Nkomo and Ndabaningi Sitole. They put their lives on the line for the sake of other people. Mugabe personally spent 11 years in prison, where even when he lost his only son to malaria, he was not even allowed to go and mourn his son. Him and others fought for a good cause without a political or a personal mandate. I don't think when they were fighting, he himself knew that he was going to be president one day. It was out of conviction and courage to fight for a people who had been oppressed and humiliated for years and years. To a generation of young Africans the world over, most of whom are 60 and over today, he was a hero. He was a Pan-Africanist. So let us look at the positives of Robert Mugabe. When you think about Robert Mugabe, you think about the liberation of Zimbabwe, you think about the liberation of Namibia, you think about the liberation of South Africa. When you think about Zimbabwe, you think about land being given back to the black people, because with colonization, with Cecil John Rhodes, land, the good fertile land, was owned by white people. And what Mugabe was not going to have, and which was a deal before actually with Britain, was he was not going to have the Africans live in the boys' quarters of their own compound, if you catch the drift. The education system in Zimbabwe was absolutely fantastic. He was known for his eloquence, guys. If you think about an African leader who spoke so well, who comes to your mind? And I think most of us speak really well. Some people think most Zimbabweans speak really well because they've gone to England or whatever. Our education system was fantastic. He was also known for being a Pan-African, and he was also known for being anti-imperialist. Now, no matter what you want to think of him, right, we all make mistakes. And so why it's taken me so long to sit down and really think about what has happened to us as a nation, because really, I don't think Zimbabwe today has a greater patriot than Robert Mugabe. And sometimes we always say everybody makes mistakes when we make mistakes, but he had his own mistakes. So let's not let's not forget all the awesome things that he did for Zimbabwe, for Africa, because of the mistakes he made towards the end of his tenure. Let us learn from his mistakes so that we know what not to do. Okay, so to finish today's episode, I really don't want to disregard those who really feel, he destroyed the nation. I really don't want to disregard how they feel, but really you get to decide what you focus on. And this particular episode, we tried to focus on the good that he did. I mean, in my language, there's a saying that goes, wafawanaka, and that which kind of means when somebody dies, they become good. And when you think about your own death really, and you think about how you want to be remembered, do you want your loved ones or your family members to remember your mistakes, or do you want them to remember all the good that you did? Because your mistakes do not take away all the good that you did. And you know what they say anyway, that the person who's not making mistakes is not trying anything new. Until next time, take care of yourself and for each other. I pray for the nation of Zimbabwe. I pray for the peace of Zimbabwe. I just pray that each and every one of us heal from whatever it is we're going through at the moment.